Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I'm going to be presenting the results of my race model for 2024. So I also did this last year. I'll post a link up above, but basically I've compared teammate data from many years of F1 data, basically all the way back till 2008 up to 2023, and using those teammate relationships, you can basically guess how teammates are going to do against each other. This year it's a bit less relevant because all of the teammate relationships or teammate heads pairs are the same as last year, with the exception of Tsunoda and Ricciardo. But getting started, so I've split it into three this year. So we have the red, which is all the teams that I predict to be front runners this year. Then we have black, are the two midfield teams roughly, and then the four back marker teams. Of course, this could easily change, and it's very easy for me to change it, look at it after the season, and adjust for how the teams actually did. So starting with Red Bull, between Verstappen and Perez, in terms of score on my model, for its 2.59 in favor of Verstappen. And when you translate this into the data, into kind of actual results, translate to 64% of points scored for Verstappen, 36% for Perez, roughly 157 points for Verstappen, and an average finishing position difference, or delta, of 2.7 positions. For Leclerc and Sainz, difference of 1.01 in my model, and this translates to 55% points for Leclerc, 45% for Sainz, and that roughly translates to 61 point advantage for Leclerc. Keep in mind that for the front runner model, it's for basically roughly 500 points in the Constructors' Championship. Average, just finishing up with Ferrari, average points difference, or average finishing delta, is 1.05 positions. For Hamilton, Russell a bit closer. Their difference in my model is 0.43 in favor of Hamilton. That translates to Hamilton getting 52% of the team's points in the Constructors, with Russell getting the other 48. Which then for the points is 26 points advantage for Hamilton, and then a average finishing position delta of 0.45. Last team in this model is McLaren. Norris with the advantage of 1.36, and that translates to 57% points of the 57% of the team's points scored in favor of Norris, an 82 point advantage, and a 1.42 position advantage in average finishing position. So a little bit closer than last year, and that's what you would normally expect with that natural progression that we should see from the drivers who were rookies last year in Piastri and in Sargent. Now, moving to the midfield, I've only put two teams in it to start the year, and that's Aston Martin and Racing Bulls. So for Alonso, in my model, he has a 2.76 point advantage over Stroll, and in the midfield model, which of course the dynamics between percentage of points scored and points difference changes depending on where you are in the Constructors, which is why you have to calculate them separately. For Alonso, 81% there for him, and then Stroll gets the remaining 19%. This would translate to a roughly 75 point advantage for Alonso, and an average finishing position difference of 2.87. And of course, I think for the midfield model, I think it's for roughly 110 points. So that would be like Alonso getting 90 points, and Stroll getting less than 20 or so. Now, moving over to Tsunoda and Ricciardo, which I think is, for me, the most interesting teammate matchup this year, given that it's the only brand new matchup that we have. Now, Tsunoda's only teammate that's actually part of the model that he's had is Gasly. Of course, De Vries doesn't have any other teammates, so he's kind of not really like an actual part of the model. But because his 2 years against Gasly didn't go particularly well, the model rates Tsunoda quite low. And as for Ricciardo, for most of his career, the model, he did very well in the model. As a result, the model ranks him very highly. Of course, he did have those 2 years at McLaren that went really poorly, but generally, the more teammates that you have over your F1 career, the less a single bad kind of pairing, less of an effect a single bad pairing will have. So even though he had that one really bad pairing against Norris, He had many really good ones, such as Verstappen when he was up against Ocon, when he was up against Kvyat, for example, or Vettel. So the model ranks for Ricciardo very highly, and I basically think that the result will be much closer than this, but yeah, it will be curious to see how close it is. But anyway, the model predicts so a 2.33 difference advantage for Ricciardo, 77% of the team's points, the other 23 for Tsunoda, a 63-point advantage in the Drivers' Championship for Ricciardo, and an average finishing position difference of 2.42. So quite big numbers there. Now, Gasly and Ocon, tough, according to my model, tightest teammate pairing in terms of how good they are. Advantage of only 0.07 for Gasly there. The model is predicting him to score 52% of the team's points, Ocon the other 48. And because they had such a bad preseason test, I put them in the backmarker model, but they could easily rebound and end up in the midfield model by the end of the season. Now, yeah, and that would translate to 0.2 points. So of course for the backmarker model, it's about seven points or so, so very, very few. But yeah, 52 points, so basically 1 point difference there between Ocon and Gasly, or even tied, and then 0.07 position difference for the last metric. Moving on to basically Sauber, Bottas 1.01 point advantage there, 72% of his team's point, 28% for Zhou, a 3.3 point difference in the Drivers' Championship, and an average finishing position difference of 1.05. Now, here is where the model kind of broke. So Albon and Sargent, the difference is 3.28, which is the biggest, I believe, the biggest on margin of any pairing on the field. And that translates into points in terms of percentage, 122% for Albon, negative 22% for Sargent. Of course, numbers over 100 or below 0 are not possible, so realistically it's basically saying Albon's going to get all of the team's points this year. Basically the model will it's just a linear equation. You put the score in, and it basically shoots out a number. And because it's basically just linear, it'll just keep going on forever. So of course, while it does say 122%, realistically it's going to be about 100% is basically predicting. Average points difference, 10.9, so basically it's saying that, of course, that's over 7, so again, it's saying that Albon should get all the points and Sargent none. Average finishing position difference, 3.41, which I do believe is actually smaller than Sargent. The number between Albon and Sargent in last year. So of course, expecting improvement there, given that it is Sargent's second season. Finishing up with Hulkenberg and Magnussen. Hulkenberg with the advantage there, 0.81, predicting to score 68% of the team's point. Magnussen's the other 32%. 2.64 points advantage in the Drivers' Championship for Hulkenberg, and then an average finishing position delta of 0.85. So there you go. So that's what the model is predicting for this year. I think in terms of differences compared to last year's result, I believe Gasly Ocon is flipped. Last year predicted Ocon ahead of Gasly, but last year's result, where they were basically very, very close, basically flipped it the other way. Hamilton Russell was also the other way last year, given that because Russell beat Hamilton in last year's Drivers' Championship, but last year's result, 2023, kind of corrected that. I believe everything else basically stayed the same. So it'll be interesting to see how the results do this year. I think I would expect probably 70 to 80%, sort of 7 or 8 out of 10 of these results will be correct. Of course, the magnitude themselves probably will be a bit off, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, looking at these predicted results, how they will fare at the end of the season. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.